You know that fluttery kind of joy you feel when something special is around the corner? That's exactly where I was. My sister Bianca's birthday was coming up, and I couldn't stop smiling just thinking about it. I hadn't seen some of the family in ages, and the idea of reconnecting, laughing over old stories, clinking glasses. God, it felt like a breath of fresh air. I'd already picked out my dress in my mind. It was soft blue, the kind that makes your eyes pop. I could almost taste the cake Bianca always orders from that little bakery we loved as kids. Everything about the party felt like comfort. But every time I brought it up, Lucas, my husband, would shift in his seat like he was trying to dodge a spotlight. He'd mumble something like, "I don't know if we should go. Maybe your sister doesn't really want us there." I laughed the first time. I thought he was joking, or just being lazy about dressing up. But the way he avoided eye contact, the way his hand tightened around his coffee cup, something didn't sit right. Bianca and Lucas had never been close, sure, but they were polite, respectful. There was no drama between them, at least none I knew of. And that made his sudden discomfort weird. I started bringing it up more, casually at first, then with a little more edge in my voice each time. I wanted him to say it, whatever it was. But Lucas just kept dodging, giving vague excuses, brushing it off with a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. So I made the decision for both of us. We're going. I said it out loud, clear as day, while folding laundry like it was just another line in the routine. He didn't argue. He just nodded, slowly, like a man walking toward something he couldn't escape. And in that moment, I told myself he was just being weird. I can still feel the excitement buzzing under my skin that night. My dress fit perfectly, hair done just right, and I'd even found those earrings Bianca gave me last Christmas. In the mirror, I saw a woman who was ready for joy, ready to be part of something warm and familiar. Lucas, on the other hand, looked like he'd swallowed a stone. Quiet, tight-jawed. He barely said a word during the drive. I tried to lighten the mood with small talk, music, even a joke or two. Nothing worked. He just kept gripping the wheel like he was bracing for impact. I told myself it was nothing. We pulled up to Bianca's place just as the lights inside started to flicker through the front windows. Warm, golden, filled with laughter. I felt a little jolt of joy. This was the kind of night we'd remember. I reached for the door handle, ready to walk into that room like I belonged there, because I did. But Lucas, he froze. I mean, really froze. His eyes darted to the side window, like he'd seen a ghost. And then he grabbed my arm, tight. Not mean, but desperate. "We can't go in. We can't be here," he said. His voice cracked on the word here. My smile vanished. I yanked my arm back, confused and honestly kind of humiliated. We were standing on my sister's doorstep. I was dressed to the nines, heart pounding with anticipation, and he was unraveling like a man about to confess to something terrible. "What is going on with you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm, even though my stomach had already started to turn. But he wouldn't look at me. He just kept shaking his head, muttering nonsense about it being a bad idea, that he couldn't explain, that he just knew. I stood there, caught between the warm house behind the door and a man coming undone. And somehow, I knew that the truth wasn't waiting behind Bianca's door. It was hiding in Lucas's silence. You ever have that feeling, like your skin knows before your brain does? That's what the next few days were like. Lucas acted normal. Too normal. Making coffee, asking about errands, like he hadn't dragged me away from my own sister's party like some lunatic. But I wasn't okay. Something inside me had shifted, quietly but completely. My heart didn't beat the same around him. My instincts, once gentle whispers, were now sirens. So I did what I never thought I would. I went through his phone. I know, trust, privacy. I believed in all that. Until I didn't. Until I had to know. It didn't take long. I didn't even have to dig deep. Just a few taps and there it was. Messages, calls, photos. And then, her. A friend of Bianca's. Someone I'd laughed with, hugged, shared appetizers with at girls' nights. Someone who looked me in the eye and asked about my marriage, probably while texting my husband under the table. The texts weren't subtle either. No coded language, no room for denial. Flirtation turned explicit. Time-stamped proof that what I'd felt in my gut was real. I sat on the edge of our bed with my phone in my lap, and the air knocked right out of me. It all clicked in an instant. The panic at the door, the urgency to leave, the haunted look in his eyes. He wasn't afraid of Bianca. He was afraid of being seen, exposed. That woman was there, probably laughing over a glass of wine, while Lucas sat frozen in the car like a child afraid of being caught. And me? I was the fool holding his hand, still trying to protect what was already broken. But I didn't scream. I didn't cry in front of him. Not yet. Because something colder, sharper was already blooming inside me. I wouldn't just survive this. I would make sure he remembered it. Bianca's brunch was the kind of thing I normally lived for. Soft jazz playing, clinking cutlery, hugs that smelled like vanilla and perfume. I showed up alone, calm as ever, wearing a pale cream blouse that made me feel powerful and clean. I didn't owe anyone an explanation for Lucas not being there. Let them wonder. Let her wonder. I smiled through every hello, every compliment. I poured mimosas, passed the fruit salad, made small talk like I hadn't been gutted just days earlier. Inside, I was holding a storm and a champagne flute. But I waited. I waited for the moment that mattered. Halfway through the brunch, Bianca stood up with her glass raised and that radiant grin she's always had. She started thanking everyone for coming, for being part of her life. And right then, I gently touched her arm. "Mind if I say a few words?" I asked, smiling so sweetly it could have passed for grace. She nodded, a little surprised but supportive. I turned to the room, familiar faces, familiar smiles, and felt my heart slow to a deliberate, steady beat. "I've been thinking a lot about loyalty lately," I began, "and how some betrayals don't come from enemies, but from the people who swore they loved you." I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone, calm, steady, like I was about to read a recipe. "Sometimes the truth speaks for itself," I said, tapping the screen. The room fell into that heavy kind of silence where even the forks stopped moving. I played a voice message first, Lucas, murmuring things I never got to hear. Then the screenshots, flirty emojis, late-night confessions, her name glowing at the top of the screen like a cruel joke. Faces around the table shifted, shock, confusion, then that sting of recognition. Bianca went rigid. The friend turned pale. And just then, the front door opened. He walked in smiling, like nothing had happened. Late, as usual. Lucas never could arrive on time to save his life. But this time, his timing was perfect. The moment he stepped through that door, every eye in the room turned to him. Silence hung thick. He scanned the faces, confused, then cautious, and then he saw my phone in my hand. Saw her face buried in shame. His mouth opened just slightly, like he might say something, but no words came. I didn't need to scream. I didn't even blink. I just looked at him and sipped my drink like he was already gone. I didn't storm out. I didn't cry. I just stood up, thanked Bianca for the lovely brunch, kissed her cheek, and walked out like I had somewhere better to be. Which, for the first time in a long time, I did. The divorce papers came a week later. No drawn-out fights, no pleading. Just signatures. I blocked his number, erased every trace, every breadcrumb he ever left behind. People talked, of course. The story spread, as these things do. And when the dust settled, the other woman lost more than my trust. She lost Bianca. She lost every seat at every table we ever shared. It didn't happen overnight, but I began again. Piece by piece. A new apartment with windows that caught the morning sun just right. Long walks without checking my phone. Laughter with Bianca, now deeper, more real, sisters in every sense. One afternoon, I sat at a rooftop cafe, the city buzzing below, a soft breeze playing with the edge of my napkin. My phone buzzed. One last message from Lucas, probably reaching for a version of me that no longer existed. I stared at it for a moment, then deleted it without reading. And as I slipped the phone back into my bag, I smiled. He ran from the front door. I walked through my own.